Ladies and gentlemen, welcome to the Blast Radius. Because I don't really have anything specific to say, I figured I would start this one with the Sasquatch call. Yeet, yeet!
The battlements of Castle Curmudgeon, where the Iranians have just found out that war is a lot like baseball. When you try 300 times and only succeed once, you're not ready for the big leagues, son. Good evening, Mr. and Mrs. America, and all ships at sea. Welcome to the Blast Radius. So glad you could join us. Here is your Decline of Western Civilization news roundup for the second week of April 2024. Dateline Austin, Monday, 8 April. Tesla CEO Elon Musk announced this week that the already much delayed launch of something called the Tesla Robotaxi will take place, he swears this time, on August 8th of this year. The announcement followed on the heels of an earlier Reuters report which asserted that Tesla plans to end development of a low-cost electric car and focus on the Robotaxi exclusively, which the first part of that equation certainly makes sense, since Mr. Musk presumably has gotten the memo that Americans, by and large, don't want electric cars, and he would prefer to live in a world where he doesn't have an inventory of tens of thousands of unsold vehicles on his hands that nobody wants to buy, like Ford and Chevy currently do. But I'm afraid there's just as big a problem with the whole robot taxi concept, and it's a problem the folks at Google can tell you all about, because they had some robot taxis in San Francisco. They had them for a couple years, and they had to shut them down around 6 months ago. Now, was it because one of them spontaneously exploded? No, though that did happen. Was it because two of them malfunctioned and caused multi-vehicle pileups? No, but that happened too. No, the reason they had to shut down the robot taxi fleet was because people kept using them as mobile hourly motel rooms in which to have sex, and homeless people pooped in them because they're homeless people. So I can't wait to see what super sophisticated technical workaround Mr. Musk and the Tesla team have come up with to circumvent those problems. And one can't help wondering if the solution is going to involve sticking an animatronic model of an overweight, passive-aggressive Iranian with eye-watering body odor in the front seat and programming it to act like a cab driver. Dateline Edinburgh. Tuesday, 9 April. It continues to be a dreadful few weeks for Scottish First Minister Humza Yousaf. And before you ask, yes, racist, Humza Yousaf is a very Scottish name. It's as Scottish as Ewan McGregor. In fact, I have it on good authority that Mr. Yousaf is so Scottish, he never leaves the house without a tam o' shanter. He eats haggis for every meal. And he loves nothing more than the sweet sound of bagpipes moaning over the misty moors in the morning. But last week got off to a bad start for Mr. Yousaf when he rammed through the stupidest speech code law in the history of Western democracy, and then J.K. Rowling, because she's got more moral courage in her impeccably manicured pinky fingernail than our man Humza does in his whole haggis-loving bagpipe-shaped body. She had that dude's balls in a jar on her nightstand within 48 hours, and the rest of the Scottish people responded to this nonsense in the way that you'd hope Scottish people would, by trolling the new hate crime hotline into oblivion with calls reporting Humza Yousaf himself for violating his own stupid law with his various tirades about how the worst thing about Scotland is that it's full of so goddamn many Scotsmen. And it turns out that Humza Yousaf's brother-in-law, he's got himself in a bit of trouble with a bit of murder. From Breitbart News, quote, Ramsay El Nakla, the brother of First Minister Humza Yousaf's wife Nadia, is expected to appear at the Dundee Sheriff Court on Tuesday after being charged in the death of Ryan Munro, who died after falling out of a Dundee apartment window on January 10th, ultimately passing away in a hospital a week later. End quote. Bah, I'm sure it'll be fine. Dateline Dallas, Wednesday, 10 April. Freshman Congresswoman Jasmine Crockett of the Texas 30th District. And yes, though her name is Jasmine, I'm going to try and keep the Harmony Unleashed jokes to an absolute minimum. She says she has got a fantastic idea for redressing the moral evil of involuntary human servitude. Make black people exempt from paying taxes. Now, do you think she knows that the United States has one of the most progressive tax codes in world history, and the top 5% of income earners pay 100% of the net income tax? So as a practical matter, most of the people she wants to exempt from paying taxes already pay no taxes anyway? No, of course she doesn't know that. I apologize for asking such a dumb rhetorical question. And it seems like our girl Jasmine heard our conversation about the biggest dumbasses in the Congress, and she was so outraged about her name not appearing, she decided to go for a hole-in-one on her very first tee shot by declaring that not only does she have this great idea about blacks not paying taxes, and not only did she hear the idea from a celebrity, but she doesn't even know what celebrity it was. Quote, I don't remember which celebrity, but it was actually a celebrity. And I was like, I don't know if that's not necessarily a bad idea. One of the things that they proposed is black folk not having to pay taxes for a certain amount of time. End quote. Now, first of all, I want to recognize the triple negative. You don't often see a triple negative occurring organically in the wild, but when you do, I think it's important that we give it the recognition it deserves. Second, Jasmine, may I call you Jasmine? You have got yourself in the conversation, baby girl. I won't call it a hole-in-one. But let's just say you've parked it right next to the cup and you've got a 3-foot downhill putt for eagle. As a great senator once said, we shall watch your career with great interest. Dateline Washington, Thursday, 10 April. Ladies and gentlemen, I want to call your attention to the fact that if the polls keep going the way they are trending, and there is no China virus 2 Wuhan boogaloo that enables the Democrats to change all the laws and rig the election, allegedly, and we've only got about 9 months left to enjoy the rhetorical stylings of the White House press secretary herself, Baghdad Buckwheat. Because this woman, she is a national heirloom, folks. She called herself an historical figure, and she was not wrong. And it's not because she is the first black, gay, homosexual, female, lesbian woman of color ever to occupy the post. No pun intended. But because, quite unlike all the toxic male patriarchal bastards who have preceded her, she can take a thing that is absolutely impossible to screw up and turn it into a public relations nightmare for an administration that already has to grapple with the fact that the president is a mentally enfeebled dotard who was kind of an idiot even back when he was in his prime. So it's Wednesday, and we're in the White House briefing, and for some reason, who knows why, it's not for us to say, Some reporter asks Baghdad Buckwheat if the White House has any comment on the death of O.J. Simpson. And as any sane person can tell you who has ever press secretaried before, the correct answer to that question goes exactly like this. No, the White House has no comment on the death of O.J. Simpson. In fact, there is no other remotely conceivably acceptable answer, but that is not the way Baghdad Buckwheat rolls, y'all. So she offered the White House's deepest sympathies to the Simpson family for O.J.'s passing after a long battle with prostate cancer, and made no mention of his two victims who died after a much shorter battle with knife cancer 30 years ago. But hey, different knife strokes for different folks, I guess. Don't ever change, Baghdad Buckwheat. You are an American icon. Let no one tell you different. Dateline Canuckistan, Friday, 12 April. An Ontario resident has successfully secured public funding for a specialized gender mutilation procedure called, wait for it, a penile preserving vaginoplasty. And do you sometimes get done saying a thing and you think, I wish that term didn't exist and I had never said it? Well, this is one of those times. And regrettably, it's pretty much exactly what the name says. They're going to install like a Frankengina onto this dude while leaving his male wedding tackle intact. And if you're blessed to be a Canadian taxpayer, then you get to pay for the damn thing, which... Now, why would someone wish to have a tallywhacker and a lady garden simultaneously? Unclear. Probably best not to think about it, because none of the potential answers are any less horrifying than the other. And trust me on this, I have done the homework so you don't have to. From CTV News, quote, patient KS, whose identity is protected under a publication ban, identifies as non-binary. She presents as predominantly female and uses she, her pronouns, but does not align with the gender binary. The reason why KS is seeking this particular procedure is because it aligns with her identity, and having the provincial insurer previously deny her request made her feel less than. There have been so many times that I just had to justify myself just to be, KS previously told the outlet. People who aren't trans or non-binary don't have that permission to exist. Oh, well, this clears things up. I can't feel like my fully realized self without getting a taxpayer-funded fake vagina stapled next to my other genitals. And I also want to keep my dangly bits. So stop trying to limit my options, you damn non-binary phobes. Remember when the American left used to hold up Canada as the perfect idyllic woke wonderland where left-wing social policy made everyone's lives better? Seems like they don't do that all that much anymore. I wonder why. We'll leave that question to hang in the air until next week, though, for this is the end of the roundup, and that means it is time for me to hand over the controls of this burning aircraft to the man who hits the third wire every time and never has to go around. The one and only, your friend and mine, Mr. Caucasian Sasquatch.
Tactical nuke incoming!
Oh, good. It just froze for me, not everyone else. It still counted down. That's awesome. Welcome to the Blast Radius, folks. We have actually a fairly spicy show tonight. I was not expecting to have quite so much spicy material to touch on, but you know how touchy-feely we are. Lurking. So, we're going to start this whole shindig like we usually do. We have a nice little quippish comment, then a monologue, and then we have our guest speaker for the night, which is, of course, Untethered Live with Jake Johnson on YouTube. He'll tell you several times it's on YouTube.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm Jake Johnson, your host for this evening from Untethered Live on YouTube. Join me as we pontificate pervasiveness, as we calculate controversy, as we visualize veracity, as we circumscribe sanity, as we vivisect vanity, as we peer ever so carefully, pulling into focus the view in the hyperbole.
So we walked out to the Weeknd's Blinding Lights, to celebrate today's solar eclipse just hours from now. Of course, you will not be blind. Have a seat, y'all.
I'm sitting, Whoopi. Calm down. Quit ruling your set with an iron fist.
You will not be blinded by the lights unless you do something dumb like this.
Is that dumb? I did that. I'm fine. Look at Melania. She's gorgeous. In a shocking twist, Donald Trump went on Truth Social and responded to Whoopi Goldberg. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, he is that serious.
Oh my God!
There it is. Yes, ladies and gentlemen, our president Donald Trump has eclipsed the sun. What could this mean? Yes. Do Native Americans still wear headdresses? All right. Make America great again. Whoopi, back to you.
But you can't see anything. How do you see the sun? No, you can see the lights a little.
Today's eclipse is causing apparently a nationwide frenzy with viewing parties and early school closing and some.
Early school closing. You know, we had eclipses when I was a kid. We called it Tuesday. That's what's wrong with America.
Some folks even warning that it's a sign from God.
All right. Whoopi, that's one. We're not going to have any of that God talk.
Oh, really?
What do you think about today's solar event?
That it's strictly science.
Strictly science? You think science caused the eclipse?
Listen, do not, okay, let's be really clear.
Yeah.
Unless you know that the glasses you have
Or eclipse.
are eclipse glasses, do not put them on to look at the sun.
Because you can't see anything.
And it doesn't even matter that you can't see anything, but it will blind you because you're not, you don't do it.
Yes.
Don't
Well,
do
Donald Trump didn't get blinded. He did it.
That's because Donald Trump is brighter than the sun. Don't you try it, Joy Behar.
No,
so a fascinating thing is it does the damage, but you don't feel it because of just how powerful it is. Can I know?
You don't feel it because it does damage. What are you talking about? You feel it when you go blind by looking at the sun. You see spots for hours.
Maybe that's what's wrong with him.
Maybe explain.
What's wrong with Donald Trump? Donald Trump, by all rights, is one of the richest men in the world. He grew up in a family that was rich, that came over here and made something of themselves in America. His uncle worked with Nikola Tesla's work and teaches at MIT. Donald Trump lives in a golden-clad house in South Florida. He ran a successful TV show and was a star for over a decade, and due to late night banter at a dinner party, decided on a whim to become president of the United States and did. And then he's about to do it again, all the while making bukus of dollars by trading on his very name. What exactly is wrong with Donald Trump? You don't like him?
Some things.
Yeah.
So what's kind of crazy is with the earthquake on Friday and then the eclipse today, people are having all sorts of conspiracies about the end of the world. And
no, honey, they're having conspiracy theories. Having conspiracies is what you're doing right now, which would be weird. Conspiracy theories. Look at the teleprompter. It has the word on it for you, honey.
then I read online that the earthquake epicenter was actually at Bedminster in New Jersey.
You read it online, so it must be the truth. Also, what does Bedminster, New Jersey have to do with anything under the sun? Is that where Donald Trump lives? I thought he lived in Mar-a-Lago. Maybe he owns a house there. Are you saying that Donald Trump caused the eclipse, or the earthquake rather, and the eclipse?
Right.
Fun fact. So it originated with Trump.
I have to say,
You are saying he caused it. That's low even for The View.
I know, right? I mean, I have to say, Karen Dupiche, our wonderful,
Oh
one of
my
our
gosh.
wonderful makeup artists, when the earthquake was happening, she put her coat on and she was like, Jesus is coming.
I'm out.
I'm out.
If Jesus were coming, do you think you could escape him by putting on your coat and running down the hall like Independence Day?
Oh, I'm leaving. We've got a solar eclipse. We've got the
ran down the
earthquake.
hallway.
She ran down the hallway.
The
And then-
rapture is
and
here.
The rapture's here. And then all
Notice how nonchalantly she says, and the rapture's here, and also, because I'm a moron, if the rapture, which isn't in the Bible, isn't a word that's in the Bible, so, but that's beside the point. If the rapture occurred, do you think you could escape it? And also, why would you want to escape it if that's proof positive that God not only exists, but has come to collect? Think about that.
so I learned that the
Get your soul right with God, young lady.
cicadas are coming.
No,
Well, this is what I read.
there's
Two
two-
different
You say cicada, I say cicada. Look at the teleprompter, honey. It says cicada. Maybe you need to tell them to spell phonetically so that you can pronounce the words that you're pretending to know the meaning of.
There's
times-
two different kinds of
Yes, two
cicadas.
different
coming.
There are 3 different kinds of cicadas, Whoopi, and then there are locusts, which is another branch of the same kind of thing. But I digress.
times are coming.
The good cicadas
Right.
and the bad
But
cicadas.
for the first time in many, many years.
No,
And so-
every 17 years this happens.
Well, that's not what I read, but maybe,
But-
maybe
Well,
you know better.
I-
But
in
I
a
will
way.
say all
What Whoopi is trying to say is you're a moron, and of course I know better because I've read at least one book.
all those things together would maybe lead one to believe that, either climate change exists.
What? Climate change? Where did you get climate change from? How do you get climate change out of eclipse or earthquake? Neither one of those things are caused by climate change. Are you saying Donald Trump is causing climate change, eclipses, and earthquakes? I think you are.
Or something is really
Except
going
Earth is
on.
returning.
Earthquakes are not at the mercy of climate change. It's underground. It can't. I don't think that's.
It happens.
I can't believe I'm agreeing with Joy Behar, but I'm agreeing with Joy Behar. Goodness gracious.
How about
And,
the warming of the
and
planet?
the eclipse, they've known about the eclipse coming because eclipses happen.
Eclipses happen. Yeah. There's a whole thing going on up there. I mean, that's us in the middle. Notice how there's things in between us and the big shiny thing over here. That's how eclipses happen. Sometimes things come between us and the big shiny thing. We've known this since there were people.
Happen, and they actually can say
This is a chart for predicting eclipses and other celestial events.
when these
And this is an ancient Greek chart. Ancient, meaning they've done it a long time ago. They understood the complexities of the movement of the celestial beings and how to predict them accurately in the future. And this is a calculator for that very thing, which means we've known about it for a while. It is not a mysterious, magical thing like you're trying to make it sound.
things are going to happen. So all these folks who are saying, it's a sign from God,
Whoopi, that's 2. I done told you we're not going to have any of that God talk.
God doesn't give you warning.
God doesn't give you warnings. That's it. I've had it. I told you. Have you read the Bible? Did you watch Untethered Live on YouTube? Because if you did, you know that's not true. God absolutely gives you warnings. Here is a chart of at least 66 books that warn you of the end time coming and of the things that you can expect from God. And in 2 Timothy chapter 2, verse 15, it says, study to show thyself approved unto God, a workman that needeth not be ashamed, rightly dividing the word of truth. That is a warning.
How dare you!
Come here today.
Greta, I don't need you to interject. I've got this argument handled. Thank you for your input, but I'll take it from here, young lady. Go to school.
With a message. As president, I have a responsibility to act with urgency and resolve when our nation faces clear and present danger.
The Harrison Ford movie?
And that's what climate change is about. It is literally, not figuratively, a clear and present danger.
We are in the beginning of a mass extinction.
Okay, Greta, I told you I got this handled, but if you absolutely insist, please join the conversation. And also, Joe, while you're talking about the clear and present danger of the existential crisis of the United States of America, are you going to get anybody to clean up that lot that you're standing in front of? Because that looks kind of shabby. You got the shoe buddies going on over there, man. Shoe buddy, look at this place.
The health of our citizens and our communities is literally at stake. The UN's leading international climate scientists call the latest climate report nothing less than, quote, code red for humanity.
Is that the Mountain Dew, Greta?
People are suffering. People are dying.
We see it here in America, in red states and blue states.
States are not red and blue. Most of them are green, but that's neither here nor there. Continue.
Extreme weather events costing $145 billion.
And all you can talk about is money and fairy tales of eternal economic growth.
I think she has a point, Joe.
$145 billion in damages just last year. Climate.
How about the billions and billions of dollars you've sent to Ukraine? How about take some of that money and put it for, I don't know, on the border or to cure homelessness? You could build lots of houses with that much billions of dollars.
Change is literally an existential threat to our nation and to the world.
Entire ecosystems are collapsing.
As president, I'll use my executive powers to combat the climate crisis in the absence of congressional action, notwithstanding their incredible action.
Joe, you're the president. Your job is to confer to the congressional actions of the Congress. That's why they're there. That's why we have 4 branches of leadership. 3, actually, but we include the media because you know what they do. Yes, I am one of those, but go ahead.
How dare you?
The world dare you. AOC, the world
is going to end in 12 years if we don't address climate change. This is our World War II.
What? How dare you? Right, Greta, I'm with you. How dare you? The world's going to end in 12 years? If that's true, why do so many rich people keep buying houses in Martha's Vineyard and in Florida and in Hawaii? The Obamas own a house in Martha's Vineyard and Hawaii. Imagine that. It's almost like they don't think that the world is going to be underwater in 12 years, which, by the way, Al Gore said that 20 years ago.
Dare you?
You can't see it, you can't smell it, but it's actually all around us.
What are we talking about? What they're in open arms about is the rising levels of CO2 in the atmosphere, that and coupled with the lowering levels of fossil fuels in the world, which are non-renewable resources, non-renewable. That's what they're talking about when they say climate change.
And it's at the heart of our climate crisis.
Fun fact, now they use the word climate change or climate crisis because they can no longer call it global warming, because they have definitively proven that the world is not, in fact, steadily warming. It warms and then it cools and then it gets really, really cold and then it gets cool again and then it warms again and then it gets hot and then it gets warm again. This is a cyclical nature of weather. It's been going on forever. That's what weather.
Has anybody else noticed the ticker on this thing?
I have not.
check out the ticker, bro.
Where's the ticker?
I just noticed it. It's at the bottom of his screen.
Does.
CO2 is a gas made up of 3 parts or atoms, 1 carbon and 2 oxygen.
No, I haven't been reading it. Is it funny?
2 oxygen.
It's good.
Atoms. That's carbon dioxide. Another thing, which is the opposite of that, would be hydrogen, oxygen, and oxygen, which would be water. You see how
All
these
right,
things kind of work
right here.
together?
I'm going to stop you right here. Ladies and gentlemen, I think we all understand what he was trying to say. 2 parts hydrogen, 1 part oxygen should explode, but instead you drink it.
Yeah, just a little slip of the tongue.
That was all it is. He doesn't believe what he just said. He just misspoke. And I'm sure next week we'll have a 10-minute explanation on exactly how that took place. Not necessary, because we've already taken
Can't wait
care
to
of
see it, though.
Can't wait to see it, though.
It's kind of important. It's part of life.
Its full name, carbon dioxide.
It's getting hot outside. Nowadays, it's difficult to turn on the news without hearing someone talking about global warming. Headlines are filled with references to rising temperature levels, fossil fuels, and encroaching danger.
It occurs naturally in our atmosphere, and it's a vital part of life on Earth.
Is it now? It occurs naturally, you say, so we're not actually causing it? Is that what you're saying? Oh, but we are causing it because of industrial blah, 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 blah. Well, turns out there's a use for carbon dioxide in the world.
People and most animals breathe in oxygen and breathe out carbon dioxide.
Breathe in carbon dioxide. Breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. Breathe in oxygen, breathe out carbon dioxide. So plants take carbon dioxide that we breathe out, and then they internalize it and they break it down, and they use photosynthesis to turn carbon dioxide into sugars that they can then feed themselves with. And as a thank you to us for producing the carbon dioxide they need to survive, they exhale oxygen, which we then use to breathe in. And then when we exhale, we breathe out more plant food. It's a symbiotic relationship of which everything on planet Earth is a part of.
Plants use CO2 to help them grow.
No, I'm
to swing the moderates when they
I'm
look at the
concerned
subject
with the
of climate
truth.
change.
And the
I'm concerned with the truth also. What is the truth in your opinion?
truth is climate has been changing for a long time. They call it global warming, global cooling. Now that everybody wants to call it climate change, yes, the climate is changing.
Yeah, it changes, and it always has changed. More interestingly, how come no one has ever asked the question out loud anyway? What would happen if climate never changed? Man, it would be pandemonium. It would be chaos in the streets. Cats and dogs would be living together. It would be crazy. Because if climate never changed, then the second law of thermodynamics would not kick in, and the world would not keep spinning.
But he has been doing that for centuries. And for us to say that it is a settled argument right now, I think, again, is a foolish argument to make, because there are scientists on both sides of the issue.
Yes, there are scientists on both sides of the issue, both sides being the Republican side and the Democratic side, not anything else. But there are people that are climate deniers, and then there are people that are truthers. It's all nonsense. Nobody knows. It's all theories. But here's the more important thing. It is true that it is not settled science. It is ongoing. That's why they call it a theory. Enter David Pakman from the internet.
That say that it is not settled.
Okay, so this is typical misdirection argument here. There
typical misdirection, is it? Sounded like the truth to me, David.
Are scientists who say that humans are having no effect on the climate. That is true by the letter of what he.
Are we watching a reactception?
Quite possibly.
We are reacting to a guy reacting to a guy reacting to something someone said.
It's like multiple layers of react.
Oh my Lord!
Like a bottomless react rabbit hole.
I think I'm going to fall in my wormhole and come out in another dimension. This is going to be
But
great.
you know what? I've got two historical anniversaries today, and I'm gonna read them both out to you, and you're gonna tell me which one you want to talk about, because I know you're gonna want to talk about both of them.
Okay, you want to wait till
You
after
ready?
this? Do it now.
Yeah, do it after this.
Okay.
He's saying, but they're playing up the controversy.
Now notice he choked on the word truth. He had to push that word out of his mouth because he knows in the back of his mind that it isn't true, that it's settled science. There are scientists all over the spectrum of political leanings and ideology that say this is not settled. We don't know everything. We're just starting to understand the numbers, but you running out and fear mongering on the internet and on TV is to raise money is not helping anybody. Calm down and let us figure this out, because we're not omnipotent. We are not capital S science.
The climate has changed since Earth was created.
What? The Earth was created, you say? Imagine that. Now, according to this graph, which was from Google, it's the first one that came up, 65% of the Earth's atmosphere is carbon dioxide when it pertains to fossil fuels and other industrial processes causing it. And then there's an 11% of carbon dioxide, which is due to forestry and other land use, such as farming and sharecropping and tractor trucks and that sort of thing. Then, and this is very important in purple here, notice 16% of the atmosphere is methane, which is a natural gas in the natural gas category of fossil fuels, which means it is a non-renewable resource, meaning the world makes a little bit of it, and then when you use it, it's gone. So we need to put a high premium on it so that you pay lots of money for it. And then,
so a little bit of a caveat to that statement. In high pressures, methane forms with water to create a solid state of methane trapped in ice. And the bottom of the sea in some places are covered sometimes thousands of yards thick, sometimes miles deep. We really don't know how deep they go. But from this critical pressure stage down, as long as nothing happens, it remains trapped in ice. But if a single rock slide were to fall into one of these particular locations, you could increase the amount of methane in the atmosphere for a limited amount of time by as much as 0.5% with a single action. Put that hand in hand with the fact that your average volcanic activity produces some absurd factor more carbon dioxide into the atmosphere yearly than all of human activity combined.
An amount that puts human industrial activity absolutely to shame.
Yeah, we should be embarrassed at being so bad at this job that the Earth does without a thought. So
Gaia, the Earth Mother, laughs at us.
Yeah, like we've definitely got to up our game on this one. See, when you tell me that carbon dioxide is going to be a problem, and you're saying this with a straight face, I kind of have an issue with it when you compare it to the natural events that take place in a common year, and we're not even on the pie chart of things that cause problems.
And why do environmentalists hate trees so much?
Right.
Then there's 6% of nitrous oxide, which would explain the view. And obviously that little sliver at the top there, which doesn't have a number, is Donald Trump and his eclipsing everything.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Panelists, let me just go right down the line real fast.
Now, this is a meeting of people on the Transportation Committee, and these are environmental scientists that involve in crunching numbers and handling the transportation systems and you know, that sort of thing. But they're discussing CO2. Continue.
So what percent of our atmosphere is CO2?
I'll bite 5%.
I'll bite. Survey says 5%.
I'll just follow you then.
Well, this guy's not bashful. He's a follower.
Thank you, Smoking Auditor, for the fact check.
I'll see their 5 and suggest that we know that transportation causes 49% of CO2. So that's why we're all working on.
Yeah. This lady, scholarly as she may be, has touted that she knows concrete. She knows it, that transportation causes 49% of the CO2 in the atmosphere.
You hold the fort for a second.
I would be delighted to hold the fort for a second. I'm going to tell the audience about the 3 anniversaries I'm going to apprise you of when you get back, and I'm going to let my lovely and talented co-host pick which one he wants to talk about. The first, the most auspicious one, is 159 years ago today. President Abraham Lincoln never got to see how the play Our American Cousin ends because he was fatally shot in the head by the scoundrel John Wilkes Booth in Ford's Theater in Washington. That's first. The second thing is and if there's any UFO fans out there, you're going to want to talk about this one, obviously. The 1561 celestial phenomenon over Nuremberg, which some people think was basically a sky battle between UFO armed combatant sky flyer type creature people. The third thing is it's also the anniversary today of one of the most famous gunfights in the history of the Old West from El Paso, Texas. They call it the 4 dead in 5 seconds gunfight. And you're back. And I have held the fort down.
I appreciate it. So yeah, what that was you noticed how it went all robot-y for a second?
Mm-hmm.
That is the one flaw I have found in my computer that is habitual and has no apparent cause. Randomly, my software for my sound mixing does that. And it only takes about 10 seconds to fix, but it takes about 2 minutes for it to actually work properly.
Well, that's annoying.
It is very annoying.
Did you hear about the 3 anniversaries?
What was the first one? I missed it.
The first one was the Lincoln assassination.
Right. Lincoln assassination.
And then the UFO battle over Nuremberg from 1561. And then the 4 dead in 5 seconds gunfight from El Paso in 1881.
Oh, bro.
It's a pretty nice smorgasbord of history anniversaries, right?
Yeah. And we're definitely going to have to go with the Nuremberg one. I wish we had pictures. But your choice.
I mean, a lot of people are big fans of that one. If you travel in UFO true believer circles, you don't need me to tell you this. I will just read from Wikipedia here. According to the report, around dawn on 14 April 1561, many men and women of Nuremberg saw what the broadsheet described as an aerial battle out of the sun, followed by the appearance of a large black triangular object and exhausted combatant spheres falling to earth in clouds of smoke. The broadsheet claims that witnesses observed hundreds of spheres, cylinders, and other odd-shaped objects that moved erratically overhead. The woodcut illustration depicts objects of various shapes, including crosses with or without spears on the arms, small spheres, 2 large crescents, a black spear, and cylindrical objects from which several small spheres emerged and darted around the sky at dawn.
Cool. So let's say you are a farmer out in your field in, what was it,
1561.
1561. You're out there hoeing with your hoe because that's what farmers do, right? And you look up and there is a literal Buck Rogers comic taking place in the sky above you, but you've never heard of Buck Rogers.
Right.
You've never even heard of science fiction. And the concept
and one is reminded obviously of the story of Ezekiel from the Bible and the flaming wheel in the sky. Like how are you supposed to describe a thing if you have no frame of reference for describing it?
I hear what you're saying there, but
a lot of people think that is a UFO story also, which is why I bring it up.
The issue I have with equating the 1400s observation versus the Ezekiel account is that nowhere in anything from the 1400s did they speak of spinning wheels within wheels. I suspect that man saw a clock. That story is one of the reasons why I believe in time travel. That is why I have a plan in place if time travel's ever proven, and it's not going to help at all, but I will enjoy the end times much better.
And the Nuremberg story is the reason it's persisted so long is because it's a pretty unique instance of a phenomenon like that being so well attested over a pretty big population center at the time. There's really nothing like it in the, what would that be, the late Middle Ages, I guess?
The only nearest comparison chronologically that jumps to mind is the conversion of Saul on his way from Damascus. Flying shield in the sky, a great cross. I mean,
the artist formerly known as Paul of Tarsus.
Hey, that brings to mind when I was dating my wife. You're gonna love this one because this is some pure Southern Baptist Pentecostal type freaking humor, right?
Oh, I love it already. Are you kidding me?
Yeah, this great, dude. It's one of my favorite stories to tell about my wife's family. My wife's grandfather was a rather renowned preacher in the southern states. He used to do things with Martin Luther King and Malcolm X and stuff like that back in, the civil rights era. When I met him, we were getting on into his very much elderly years, and his cheese had already slid almost completely off of his cracker. And so we have the same first name. And so the first time I met him, every time someone would say, well, this is so-and-so, he'd say, no, you're not, I am. And force that entire conversation to take place. After a little while, we were left alone by the fireplace, and sitting on the mantelpiece were all of the saints and nativities and all of the associated religious memorabilia. And he looked over at me and he goes, hey, man, I know your name and my name is the same, right? I said, yes, sir. I kind of suspected you were messing with people. He says, the one problem, though? I can't tell you any of those guys on the mantelpiece is, but that one guy missing his head, that's John the Baptist. And he turned and walked away. One of the figurines had his head broken off, and it was sitting on the ground on the mantelpiece next to him. And I hadn't even noticed him, man. I just turned and looked and realized that I don't know who half of those figures are just by looking at them, but he's right. That one right there is John the Baptist.
Yep, that one, that's an easy one to remember, all right.
Right? He dropped that piece of gem and walked away from me, and it left me just giggling. And people asked me what's so funny, and I couldn't tell them because it wouldn't be funny to them right then. They would not like that joke.
All right, do you want to hear about the 4 dead in 5 seconds gunfight? How can you not love a story with a name like that?
Go for it, dude. I got
kind of surprised I've never heard of this one before.
Let me give you the light.
14 April 1881, a group of about 75 heavily armed Mexicans moved into El Paso, Texas, looking for 2 missing vaqueros named Sanchez and Huarique, who had been searching for 30 head of cattle stolen from Mexico. Solomon Schultz, mayor of El Paso, made an exception for the Mexicans, allowing them to enter the city limits with their firearms. Gus Krempkow, an El Paso County constable, accompanied the posse to the ranch of Johnny Hale, a local ranch owner and suspected cattle rustler who lived some 13 miles northwest of El Paso in the Upper Valley. The corpses of the 2 missing men were located near Hale's ranch and were carried back to El Paso. A court in El Paso held an inquest into the deaths, with Constable Krempkow, who was fluent in Spanish, acting as an interpreter. The verdict was that Sanchez and Huarique had been in the vicinity of Hale's ranch looking for the stolen cattle. The court determined that the American cattle rustlers, among them Hale, had feared the men would discover the cattle and return with a larger armed Mexican force. 2 American cattle rustlers, Purvey and Fredericks, were accused of the murders of Sanchez and Huarique after they were overheard bragging about killing 2 cowboys when they found them trailing the herd to Hale's ranch during the night of April 13th. Or early in the morning of the 14th. Meanwhile, a large crowd had gathered in El Paso, including John Hale and his friend, former town marshal George Campbell. There was tension among some of the Americans who were concerned that the Mexicans, with a combination of anger, restlessness, and being heavily armed, would become violent while demanding justice for their 2 murdered comrades. At the inquest, Purvey and Fredericks were formally charged with the murders and immediately arrested. Court was adjourned and the crowd dispersed. The arrestees were scheduled for trial at a later date. With the formerly tense situation diffused, the Mexicans returned to Mexico with the 2 corpses for proper burial.
Did you say one of them men's name was Purvey?
Purvey, yes, sir. Purvey
Oh my God! Can you imagine the ribbon that man took? No wonder he
Oh
was
my
a
God,
cop.
I know.
Purvey the Purvis. Purvey the pervert.
Imagine going through high school with that name today. Hey, Mr. Purvey, how's it going? Try and keep your fucking pants on. Look, it's Purvey.
Oh my Lord. No wonder he grew up to be a serial killer.
You want to hear the particulars of the gunfight?
Sure, I got time.
Marshal Dallas Stoudemire, a noted gunfighter who had only started as town marshal on April 11th, was present in the courtroom. After the court adjourned, he walked across the street for dinner. Constable Krempkow went to a saloon next door to retrieve his rifle and pistol. There, a confrontation took place with George Campbell over remarks he allegedly made about Krempkow's translations and his apparent friendship with the Mexicans. John Hale, who was reportedly unarmed, was heavily intoxicated and was also upset with Krempkow's involvement in the matter. Hale grabbed one of Krempkow's 2 pistols and yelled, "George, I've got you covered!" He then shot Krempkow, who reeled backward. Slumping against a saloon door, Krempkow drew his own pistol. Marshal Stoudemire heard the shot, jumped up from his dining chair at the Globe restaurant, pulled out his pistols, and ran out into the street. While running, Stoudemire fired wildly, killing Ochoa, an innocent Mexican bystander who was running for cover. As the first shot was heard, John Hale jumped behind a thick adobe pillar. When he peered out from behind the pillar, Stoudemire fired and struck Hale between the eyes, killing him instantly. Campbell stepped from cover with his pistol drawn, saw Hale lying dead, and yelled to Stoudemire that this fight was not over. However, Constable Krempkow, mistakenly believing that Campbell had shot him, then fired his pistol twice at Campbell before losing consciousness from loss of blood. Krempkow's first bullet struck Campbell's gun and broke his right wrist, while the second hit him in the foot. Campbell screamed in pain and scooped up his gun from the ground with his left hand. Stoudemire whirled away from Hale and instantly fired at Campbell, who dropped his gun again, grabbed his stomach, and collapsed onto the ground. Stoudemire walked slowly toward Campbell and glared at him. In agony, Campbell yelled, "You big son of a bitch! You murdered me!" Stoudemire said nothing. Both Campbell and Krempkow died within minutes. After just a few seconds, 4 men lay dead or dying. 3 Texas Rangers were standing nearby, but did not take part, saying that they felt Stoudemire had the situation well in hand.
Never draw down on a man who's already got a gun drawn. Your best bet is
for a Wikipedia article. That one's got a pretty good closing flourish.
That's pretty good. I'll go back and figure out who it was that wrote that one. Offer them a job.
Right? Yeah. That's pretty good prose for a wiki, I gotta say.
Right? I mean, usually when you're reading a Wikipedia article, it's kind of like sucking on chalk. It's just technical facts, and that's all well and good, but occasionally,
yeah, it's what we love about it.
I mean, you get an author, an actual wordsmith.
Well, yeah, and you know, I hear people run down Wikipedia all the time for reasons that are good and proper, because you have to stay away from any sort of current day political topic. But if you're just staying within the realm of like the applied sciences and scholarly historical topics, Wikipedia is the greatest resource in the world. You'd have to be an idiot not to use it. People get mad at me when I say that, but it's true.
What can you do about it though? I mean, there ain't a damn thing any of us can do, so why does everybody get so
I mean,
pissed off?
it's a place that is dominated by leftist wokesters. So you take it for what it is and you use the parts of it that are useful and you ignore the parts that are not. And there are pretty obvious delineating boundaries between the two, because you can tell pretty quickly when you get too close to a current day topic. the prose in the article starts being wokesterese instead of English.
Right.
And you're like, okay, I gotta retreat back into earlier history.
Yeah, basically, that's where you're at. If you take a look at a 1970s dictionary and compared it to the modern parlance of today, you would not actually understand what people are saying. No cap.
Oh, I know, and it gets more and more. You can tell within the first 4 or 5 words quite often when a wokester is talking, because they speak a language that is increasingly its own distinct dialect of English that is pretty far divorced from what we like to think of as standard English.
Exactly. And I wouldn't even call it Oxford English anymore because Oxford's lost. We have a combination effect taking place when it comes to our language. Given the Department of Education has the ability to alter definitions in our lexicon on the school level, that needs to be abolished. That cannot be permitted. That is direct indoctrination. When you change the definition,
along with the whole department,
the entire federal level of the Department of Education needs to be abolished.
There should be absolutely no central government involvement in local education. Period. Full stop. Exclamation point. It was
never constitutional. There is no way that the education or re-education or indoctrination of your children were ever intended to go to a federal power.
And the people in our government who are supposed to be the conservatives don't ever want to talk about this stuff. The things we have done just in recent history that have been monstrously disastrous failures, and when are we allowed to start talking about getting rid of them or repealing them or abolishing them because they don't work and everybody knows they don't work? When can we start having when can we start having the conversation about how much bureaucracy is too much? When can we start rolling back democracy? Are we just going to live in a world where there is inexorably more and more and more central government and more bureaucracy as the years go on? Because just tell us that if that's how it's going to be. But otherwise, we should get to have the freaking conversation is all I'm saying.
I agree. The issue is not just the conversation. It's the activity it would take to fix it. Because if you're going to try to fix this, it's been 50 years since the states have actually managed their own school programs. They've got private school programs, but they also have to apply to pass the federal mandates. This is
and the people who are making their very lucrative livings in the central government education bureaucracy, they want to crush private schools and charter schools and religious schools and make a world where absolutely using everything in their power to make sure you have to put your kid in one of their public schools because that's what makes them money. And they don't want they don't want you to have an option that doesn't make them money.
True, but I'm more concerned with this concept of the school to prison pipeline and the fact that the management of school systems is virtually identical to the management of prison systems, with the exception of the prison systems are privatized and the school systems are totally funded by public money. So we have a certain amount of transparency in the.
When we would probably do better if we actually reversed that. If we farm the education out, if we farm the education out to private entities and went back to having all the prisons be government institutions as they should be, because that's the one function of government that shouldn't ever be farmed out. And I don't think I have to prove my libertarian bona fides for anyone around here when I say that.
One primary issue I have with that whole setup is that top-down model for schools is an absolute disaster. This basically creates a word czar, an unelected official who can decide what things means. He writes it down in a memo pad before he goes to bed. When you wake up the next morning, there's brand new hate laws on the books that were never written, never voted on, and have no applicable standing in any social environment.
And wasn't one of the ideals of our founding supposed to be that communities can and should have the right to have their own community values that might not be the same as the community values of somebody else, and to instill those community values in their children, in their local schools?
It's not just schools, and
of course
I'm a
not.
big believer in the separation of
In
church and
general,
state.
communities are allowed to have their own values that nobody else gets to talk shit about.
But not anymore.
Not
And
anymore.
you get to talk shit about it. You do. You get to talk shit about
I mean, not in a world where everything is top-down central government brute force control.
See,
which
that's
is
what a
the
lot of
direction
people
that
do.
everything has been going for the last half century. And again, when are we allowed to talk about arresting that and turning it back or anything?
Changing it somehow. I primarily have an issue with non-elected officials, the people who are appointed to positions, and these are people that are owed political favors, and so they end up in a position where they have no idea what they're managing, no clue.
And that's who the deep state is.
And exactly, that is the visible component of the deep state. When you have someone from Delaware who has never seen a firearm, even at a distance, is on the firearms committee. That makes no sense unless you're pushing a specific agenda, unless you're specifically trying to alleviate the concept of constitutionality. That's the only purpose of that.
And the things you're attempting to do are increasingly untethered to any sort of facts in the real world, because, it's more of a religion than any sort of a utilitarian or materialist exercise.
It is a cult. It is obviously a cult. Anyone standing outside looking in can see that these people are not actually happy. They're just smiling for the dear leader.
And why should you have to have any specific technical knowledge about guns when you know the correct belief that guns are bad and evil and wrong and they have to be banned? Why would I want to know technical details about something that's evil?
So that you don't make an absolute ass of yourself when discussing it before Congress, because you will do so. And so it kind of bothers me when you have senators from Texas and senators from Georgia and senators from or Congress people from various states that could very well deliver quite a succinct statement on firearms to the Congress, and yet these people are almost never appointed.
Right, because we don't actually want them to have specialized knowledge. We know that at some point where we might have to put them in front of a congressional panel in a hearing, and it will be embarrassing and it will go very badly for us. But we just trust in the fact that our friends in the mainstream media who are in the tank for us and have our back will make sure that the story disappears fairly quickly.
Exactly. And with the advent of social media and the ability to algorithmically jiggle the commode handle of the universe as far as anyone.
Oh, what a beautiful way of putting it.
Well, that's all it is, dude. Every 2 weeks they come along and restart the algorithm with brand new concepts built in. And it pops out and does an absolutely atrocious job. And they go, well, it's better than last time. And then 2 weeks later, they do it again.
Yep, but they're still chasing that. They're still chasing that dragon. They still think they can find that perfect algorithmic formula that will make all the content be exactly the way they want it. And goddamn it, they're going to keep searching and searching and searching until they find it.
And it doesn't exist. It's like the concept of
justice.
It
doesn't exist. Yeah. It's the pot of gold at the end of the rainbow, for God's sake.
Justice is a pipe dream. Justice is what people without power say when they want to team up on some specific individual, be it a business or the government or an individual, however it works. Justice is always bandied about whenever you have a group of people who are unhappy for personal reasons. Now, does justice exist? No, there's no justice. There's just us. We decide what justice looks like. And turning people loose into the streets is not justice. in almost any case.
We invent things that we call justice systems. We know they are going to be imperfect. They are imperfect, but we try to erect whatever guardrails we can to make them as non-imperfect as possible as a practical everyday matter in the real world.
There is no practical justice. There is might makes right, and you have the altruistic thought. You have the Good Samaritan versus the bully. These are not necessarily exclusive individuals. They're not, these people can be the same person. And so justice is a fuzzy concept in the beginning. Now, an eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, nature red and tooth and claw. I mean, these things are facts. They're not being just done away with.
Well, and then for thousands and thousands and thousands of years, up until 5 minutes ago, cosmically speaking, there wouldn't have been a society in the history of the Earth that would have questioned those principles of justice, which we now view as quite barbaric and unsavory. Eye for an eye and a tooth for a tooth and all that.
My point is,
but we don't do ourselves any favors when we dismiss out of hand the idea that there might have been something wise behind those barbaric policies that we now look down our noses at with such scorn and disdain.
Consequences is the whole issue. Without consequence, there is no right thought, because all thoughts become equal, and it's all moral because there's no consequences.
And we see exactly where we wind up when we try to build a society around permissiveness.
Right. Just and apparently
go to any big city in North America and tell me how well permissiveness works.
I want you to go specifically to New York, because they're just giving away houses up there, from what I understand. You just move in, change the locks, get your power turned on, and it's yours.
Yeah, and I was reading just this morning that, you know, there are vast stretches of the city now that are basically Tijuana, where people are just set up on the sidewalk hawking stolen goods, and, you know, with all the drug dealing and prostitution that accompanies that. And so there's you got the multiculturalism you voted for, I guess.
Right. That's how that works. And if it's done too quickly, the great melting pot concept was always my favorite analogy to how America works. And
it works perfectly well if you have a common culture and require people to assimilate into it.
You have to have the time for the people to assimilate into it.
Yes.
They're not going to do it.
That's why you don't bring people over in their millions and millions and millions and millions all at once.
You will directly change the voting demographic of your populace, and half of them, no, not half, but some significant percentage of very vocal, very active voters will suddenly be your driving force in your economy, because they are the most active people trying to better their circumstances.
Meanwhile, we have been occupied by the biggest invading army in world history. 8 or 9 military-aged males.
If it was a bunch of refugees, old ladies and mothers and children and stuff, I wouldn't say a word. I'd be sitting over here right now talking about what a great system it is that lets refugees come whenever they need help. But the fact is, military-aged men. We have everything from MS-13 to the ex-Argentinian gangs showing up in New York City and San Francisco. You can't tell me that's a coincidence.
Nope. Yeah, we've got some extremely bad hombres that have ingressed our territory since Joe Biden's had his hand on the tiller.
It feels intentional to me. It does not feel like, oh, well, we've got a bunch of refugees. What are we going to do? Let's do something with them. It feels like we're going to smuggle.
Oh yeah, this is way past incompetence and far into corruption. Hanlon's razor has been broken in half on this one.
Yeah,
these people are not engaged in a good faith effort to enforce the laws of the country.
All right, we got another few minutes of this to go. Want to work it out?
Go for it.
Well, did we cover all three of your topics?
Did you have anything to say about the Lincoln assassination?
It's a hell of a story if you ever go look into the finer details of the timeline of what took place. There are at
I
least
need to see this play like I need a hole in the head. Sorry, had to do it.
So what number would you say all CO2 is, lady?
Energy transition.
All right. So what number do you think it is?
5.
Right.
5? You just said 49% of the CO2 is caused by transportation, and you're saying that all CO2 is 5%. 5%? You should run for Treasury Department, lady. You could borrow us out of debt in like 2 days. That is some math gymnastics going on there.
Okay. How about you? I didn't hear you, Mr. Dreher.
7.
7. The answer is 0.04%.
0.04. 0.004 if you want to get specific. At 0.002, plants die. They can't survive without that much. You need 2% or 0.2% of CO2 for plants to even live, and we're 2.2% above that. Okay, that, in case you don't know math, that's a number that's below 1%.
Not 1%, not half of
way
1%.
below 1%.
0.04%. It's gone up from 0.03 over the last couple decades.
So 2 decades ago, that's 20 years ago, it was 0.03. And now it's 0.04, and everybody's freaking out. I wouldn't freak out unless it was like 20. But 0.04? I think we're in the safe zone of CO2.
This is what we're being all contorted into doing, is this tiny change in CO2. If we get below 0.02, plant life starts dying off.
How dare you?
How dare you? I agree, Greta. You tell them, baby. Go to school.
They hate trees.
Carbon dioxide is a kind of plant food. Plants break down carbon dioxide as they make energy through photosynthesis, releasing
Trees are
oxygen
evil.
in the process. That's why, as humans have increased the amount of carbon dioxide in the atmosphere, some places have seen increased plant growth.
What? Are you saying that as we have been industrialized and we have produced way more carbon dioxide
plants
than we ever have before, plants are thriving in some areas? It's almost like they eat the stuff.
If plants grow in places, then we can't put fucking solar panels and windmills there. God damn it.
I have wondered
Facts.
where they came from, how they were formed, and why they're so important to our lives. Why don't you tell us in this beautiful little cartoon that you've devised for children so that they don't even question the world as they grow into it, because they've been being told since birth that this is how.
John DeNicola, she was arrested for stopping traffic. Where was it? The Netherlands? She
Oh,
went out,
yeah.
and they showed up and arrested her, but she was released, as far as I know, with no charges yet again.
Because she has no source of public notoriety now except going to dumb protests and ostentatiously getting arrested.
Also, she's an adult now, so she's fair game.
You're damn right she is. She will blow you at the Olympics.
Oh, wow.
Things are. Where did fossil fuels, non-renewable resources come from?
Are they important in our everyday life? Fossil fuels such as oil, natural gas, petroleum, and coal are all important non-renewable resources that
Oil and petroleum are different things?
Or important. I don't know which.
No.
Come on, guys.
But he just wanted to have 4 things on his chart.
Yeah, that's it. He just wanted to have 4 things, didn't he?
Because to tell you the truth, there is no difference in the first 3. They're all found in the same resources.
Yeah. There's a reason they call them petrochemicals, after all.
Right. And even the coal has the capacity of being made into any of the other 3.
Yep.
So, okay. Already,
coal is
you
magic.
can have-
Everything you have that you like, you owe to coal. That's just all there is to it.
Pretty much. Yeah, no, that's accurate. Yeah.
which because he sounds like a Valley boy from California. But
What are you
the Valley
talking
Boys,
about, dude?
there is oil, natural gas, coal, and petroleum in the ground, but how did it get there?
Come from the formation of sedimentary rocks. Fossil fuels were formed millions of years ago from dead organic material.
Yeah, he has to throw that millions of years ago in there because if you hear long ago and far away, you don't tend to think critically about what's being said next. But I caution you, long ago and far away is how fairy tales start. And also, he just said that rocks ferment. I'm not sure that's true either.
Such as plants and animals. Coal, oil, and gas were formed when these plants and animals died.
All right, I have a problem with how simplified this is. This is so simplified that it's wrong.
And why does everything have to be in fucking cartoons with cartoony little childlike music? It's so creepy when they do that.
Because they're not trying to groom your children.
Remember the fucking CDC during the stupid China virus? How all of their messaging was fucking cartoon based? It was the creepiest fucking thing I ever saw.
That you don't have to pay for CGI under those circumstances. But the issue here is that anthracite coal, certain types of coal, is plant-based and was laid down by plants, but most of your petrochemicals are microscopic organisms that formed in basically a salty soup long ago. Different time periods across Earth's history delivered different qualities of petrochemicals, and that's your light crude, sweet crude, that kind of stuff. Your
Also,
coal,
while we have it paused, there's another really big anniversary I missed. In case you want to talk about it,
what it is?
It's Titanic Day. It's Titanic plus 112.
Oh, Jack!
Rose!
There was room for both of them on that fucking door.
Jack!
We could have had the heart of the ocean, bro. The heart of the sea right
Rose!
there. What's up, country boy archaeology? All right. We're going to hold on.
To the
this particular tidbit of that video has pissed me off to no end. Like, I don't want to watch
Let it all out, brother.
You know, dude, it's like oversimplification. Like, simplification is one thing. You know, you want to teach people about the sun,
but I know what you're talking about, because there is a difference between simplification and dumbing down, and this is dumbing down.
This isn't just dumbing down. He's categorically wrong.
Well, yeah, and just in addition to just lying.
Basically, that's what I'm getting at. I'm not a big fan of negative language, so I try not to be directly negative. But the man's lying. He's blatantly lying, and he's hoping no one notices because he's got some cartoons and some music in the background, and he's on YouTube. So
yeah.
Oh my Lord! All right. Buckle down. We can do it.
The bottom of the ocean.
Okay, this is very important. So all oil, coal, and natural gas is found at the bottom of the ocean. There's none in the hills and in the rocks. Oh, that was once ocean. Oh, I see. So you have to have things living there that die and then fall to the bottom and then get covered over by this slow marauding
circle of life,
usual band of sedimentary rock that seems to overlayer everything every so many millions of years. I don't know where this dirt comes from. It came from over there and now it's here. But are there any fossils over there? Well, yeah, because dirt came from... where is this dirt coming from? Is it falling from outer space? You do realize they don't make any more dirt, right? We have the amount of dirt that we have, and there is no more.
Yeah, but it do move
where
around
are these
a lot.
Layers coming from? It's almost as if you took dirt and then caused liquefaction, which would then layer itself in order of density, because that's how liquefaction works, like the Grand Canyon.
Over time, the dead organic material was covered by layers.
And listen to the voiceover. The voiceover combined with the visuals on the screen, it's like it's on the level of a 4-year-old.
Of mud and other sediments. Pressure from layers of sedimentary rocks, along with heat, turn these dead animals and plants into coal, oil, and natural gas.
So what you're saying is the dead animals die, they fall to the bottom, and then they're covered over by this mysterious, marauding, roving bands of sedimentary rock, which overlayers everything periodically, and then get really hot and heavy, and then it turns into coal, oil, and natural gas, respectively, at the same time. Take a look at those three things. You got.
Now, okay. So my boy here, notice over here, it says, wait, he took it down. Okay. He introduces himself as pastor, right? Y'all keep that in mind when he gets scientific, because it does not follow the narrative, in case you were a little confused. It's sort of a young earth type, if you catch my drift.
Uh-oh.
Oh, but it's great fun. I love poking at him with it. It's funny. It's funny. It's almost impossible to have a conversation with him because he refuses to. Well, he will agree to terminology and then immediately defy that terminology by insisting that it means other shit. Because
I expect everybody in the audience right now is old enough to remember like 2007, 8, 9, 10. And if you're old enough to remember those years, then you remember when these same people who are the climate cult alarmists now, who say all fossil fuel is 100% bad and evil and bad, those same people 15 years ago were singing the praises of clean, green, natural gas. Around here, we had it painted all over the buses. This vehicle runs on clean, green, natural gas was the wonder fuel of the future for these people. So I wonder what happened in the interim between then and now.
You want to know what happened? They utilized it. It became one of the primary fleet sources, and suddenly it's not an extra chemical that's produced in the production of gasoline. It's now an essential chemical that's produced in the they used it. They used the capacity, and now they're trying
and we can no longer get rich promoting it, so now it's evil. That's how that works. Exactly. And then they blame it and they blame it on the earth.
It's all Magaya's fault. Blame that bitch.
Time, space, matter. You've got liquid, solid, gas. You've got natural gas, oil, coal. See how everything has three states: energy,
you forgot
plasma,
petroleum,
nuclear force,
True.
whatever you want to call it. I don't remember all of them.
Oh God, why does he say nuclear?
This is just
because he
one
thinks
of those
it's
things.
funny.
You see, it starts out.
Does he do it on purpose?
Natural gas congeals over time and turns into oil, and then oil sits for a long period of time and gets old and crusty and turns into.
I hope so.
coal. That's how it really works.
Titan's thick atmosphere.
Titan? What does Titan have to do with anything?
America!
Oh, glad you asked.
Fuck yeah! I'm surprised we haven't started drilling for oil on Titan.
Because as much as I love irony,
far away,
I would never say nuclear for ironic purposes. That's a bridge I won't cross.
I might though, because in the right circles, it is hilarious to watch people's eyes bug out and them try not to say nothing, and then when they do say something, say, "Yeah, I know."
You're probably right. I'll give you that.
What are they gonna say? You know? Yep. So why do you do it? To get that reaction right there, because that is hilarious. That's 1 million views, baby.
Is known for many things, one of which is that thick, billowy atmosphere that it has around it that you can barely see through, which is caused by methane.
Makes it extraordinarily difficult to study from afar. Through most of our telescopes, it looks like a fuzzy orange ball, but thanks.
I guess Donald Trump is responsible for that too.
Orange moon is bad.
Cassini and Huygens, we now know that Titan is a moon unlike any other.
It makes me want to do the Scottish voice some more.
You haven't seen any other moons, so
I didn't quite blow my throat out.
The them all.
Smoking Auditor, you can't have a plasma form of a natural fuel because plasma is a form of matter, and it is a highly energized form of matter. And since that's the case, you could have plasma iron, you could have plasma hydrogen, you could have plasma oxygen, but you can't have plasma biofuels. It won't reach those temperatures before it combusts.
Right, that's my understanding too.
So you could feasibly have plasma gold if you could get it hot enough and control it. That's the issue.
Yeah, I mean, theoretically, you can bring anything to a plasmatic state
through enough
as long as it. Yeah.
Yeah.
There might be a moon out there with a Starbucks on it, but it's not very likely.
In a strange way, Titan may be the most Earth-like world out there. It is the only other place we know of that has liquid on its surface. But in Titan's case, it is not water as we know it, but instead mostly liquid methane.
Translation from European into English, that's methane. I don't know where they get their crazy language from, but anyway, it is like planet Earth in that it has flowing rivers, lakes, and oceans on it, and mountains. Mountains made of liquid methane turned to ice that is so hard it's like granite. Why is it so hard, you ask? Because it's very, 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 very cold on Titan.
Which fills up seas, flows in rivers, and even rains down from the sky. It's so cold there, however, that life as we know it couldn't exist.
Now, life as we know it could not exist or ever have existed on Titan. It is way too far out away from the sun. It is way too cold, and its atmosphere is comprised primarily of methane, among other things. Now, what do you think would happen if you were to stand on Titan? Well, first of all, you'd get a fill up, but then you would die because you couldn't breathe methane. So living things are a no-no on Titan.
In fact, the mountains and valleys are made up of water ice, frozen, harder than granite.
What he meant to say was methane ice because there is no water on Titan, but there is liquid, and he meant to say liquid ice. But there you go. Other things can be ice, by the way.
Fossil fuels were formed millions of years ago.
There you go with the fairy tales again. Dead organic materials. That means living things.
From dead organic material, such as plants and animals. Coal, oil, and gas.
And we always
were
have to
formed
have a flamboyant homosexual doing the voiceover.
over time.
Thank you.
The
I have to
dead
thank you.
organic
Thank you.
material was covered
Thank
by
you.
layers of
I
mud.
appreciate it.
and
Sorry, Jake, we're not going to have time to finish that this week, but I appreciate the effort. That was actually, I enjoyed it a lot. I do enjoy his takes because it's completely like any other content on his channel. He does not do that at all on his channel. That he makes that specifically for us. So I appreciate that. And get weird, bro. I'm good with it.
All right, give me your final thoughts on the Lincoln assassination and the fucking Titanic.
All right, we're going to start with the Lincoln assassination. There are 2 points in the details of that story where it might not have been John Wilkes Booth. If you look into the finer details, and I'm talking correspondence between the people who were at the theater, deep dive into the history of it, there are 2 points where that man gets out of sight. He was largely identified because he was still wearing the crap he was wearing at the place when they found him, and he had a broken foot from jumping down from the balcony and running away.
Yes, and he was probably the most well-known person at the theater where he committed the act.
That is true. However, that very same night, there was another individual there, and his name escapes me, but he had came because he looked like John Wilkes Booth. He was commented on by a few of the newspapers where there was a bit of a double sight going on at the time because this guy supposedly just randomly shows up to walk around and appear to be John Wilkes Booth because he's basically like an Elvis impersonator, because Booth was a famous actor at the time. So,
Yeah.
I mean, this was the reason Lincoln was there to watch this play, was because Booth was famous. Now
the guy in that story I always feel bad for is the guy who held the horse. who felt like the biggest idiot in the world for the rest of his life. I always feel bad for that guy.
You're killing me, bro. I hadn't even thought about that. Yeah, no.
Yeah.
Can you imagine standing there, the guy's coming out, somebody just shot Lincoln. Fuck me.
Yeah, like, oh my, and then it just kind of slowly dawns on him. He's like, oh fuck, dude.
And the Titanic, I think it was a mafia hit on an individual on the Titanic, and I will try to cover some of that on a Chilling with Sasquatch at a later.
You know, there's a lot of people who still fervently believe, just like the flat earthers, that it wasn't really Titanic that sank that night, that it was really Olympic, that White Star swapped out the two ships in an elaborate insurance scheme. Or am I talking us out? Ladies and gentlemen, thank you ever so much for joining us here on the Blast Radius. We sure do appreciate it when you make us a little tiny part of your Sunday evenings. We will see you next week. We hope you have a great day and a pleasant, delightful tomorrow. See you next time. Do not comply. Get off my lawn.
I screwed the pooch. I almost hit the wrong.
Give me the money. Give me the money.